Here's your share for the weekend, Mom. $486. Venmo's easiest, but a check works too. That was the text. My son David sent it at 9:14 on a Tuesday morning, 3 days after my only grandson's high school graduation. Underneath it, he had attached a photo of the hotel bill, itemized. 2 nights at the Comfort Suites off the interstate. A resort fee I never asked for. A parking charge for a car I did not move once. He had even circled the total in red pen, the way his father used to circle a property corner on a survey map. I was standing at my kitchen counter when it came through. I had a dish towel over my shoulder and Raymond's old reading glasses pushed up on my head because I had been squinting at the back of a seed packet. Marigolds. I set the phone down next to the chipped blue mug I have had since 1987, and I read the message twice. Invited. He had used that word. 2 weeks earlier, on the phone, he had said, "Mum, we want you there for Sam's graduation. Come stay the whole weekend." I am Eleanor. I am 71 years old. My husband Raymond passed 4 years ago in March. For 46 years, he was a land surveyor for the county, and then on his own, and he used to say the same thing. Every time we drove past a fence, somebody had put up in the wrong spot. Ellie, a line you don't record is just a wish. I did not understand, that Tuesday morning, how much I would need those words. I picked the phone back up. I did not text anything sharp. I did not call him and cry. I set it face down and looked out the window at the garden. Raymond and I planted the first spring in this house, and I thought about the weekend he had just charged me for. I had driven 90 minutes to see Sam walk across that stage. I brought my dish of scalloped potatoes, the one everybody always asks for, in the same white casserole with the little chip on the rim. When I got to David's house, Vanessa met me at the door with her arms crossed and told me the guest room was taken. Her sister was staying. Her sister's kids were staying. "We booked you somewhere really nice," she said, smiling. "It's just easier." So I slept in a hotel by the interstate, while my son's house was full of his wife's family. I sat 3 rows back at graduation, because the front had been saved. I stood at the edge of the party in the backyard, holding a glass of lemonade, and when I went to say goodbye, David hugged me quick and said, "Thanks for coming all this way, Mom." Now he wanted $486 for the privilege. I looked down at the marigold seeds in my hand. Then I looked at the phone, face down on the counter, and I felt something settle in me that was very quiet and very old. I was not going to argue. Raymond taught me you do not argue with a wish. You go find the record. I want to be fair, because I have had time to be fair. It did not start with a hotel bill. It never does. It starts so small you tell yourself you are imagining it. The first time, it was the Thanksgiving after Raymond died. I offered to host the way I always had. David said it might be easier at their place that year, with everything you're going through. Then he asked if I could still bring the turkey and cover the wine, since money was tight for them with the new house. I said, of course. I told myself he was grieving his father in his own way, and that a grieving man says clumsy things. The second time was the lake house. Raymond and I bought that little place on Cutler Lake in 1998. 2 bedrooms, a screened porch, a dock that always needed a board replaced. It was ours. Raymond surveyed the lot himself before we signed, walked every boundary, drove the pins in with his own hands. After he died, I let David and Vanessa use it in the summers, because Sam and my granddaughter Ella loved the water, and I loved knowing they were happy there. But over 3 summers, the way David spoke about it changed. It went from, "Can we use the lake house?" to, "We're heading up to the lake," to, "This past May, we're thinking of redoing the dock at our lake place, there." I heard it, and I let it go. Because who wants to correct a full-grown son at his own dinner table over one small word? The third time, I could not let go, though I tried. I balance my checkbook by hand, at the kitchen table, the first Sunday of every month. It was Raymond's habit, and I kept it. That June, running my finger down the statement, I found a charge I had not made. $241 at Dahlgren Lumber, up near the lake. I never shop at Dahlgren. I have never once been inside Dahlgren. I sat there with my reading glasses down on my nose and the pen still in my hand, and I told myself the things I always told myself. You're getting older, Eleanor. You probably ordered something and forgot. It's a mistake. The bank will sort it out. I even circled it, meaning to call. And then a church luncheon came up, and I let it go. The way I let everything go. Dahlgren Lumber, dock boards. I did not connect it to anything yet, but I did not throw the statement away either. I put it in the drawer. By the time I saw that hotel bill on my phone, I understood those moments had not been separate at all. They had been practice. They had been measuring me, quietly, for years, and I had held the tape steady for them. I did not sleep well that Tuesday night. Around 2 a.m, I gave up, put on Raymond's flannel robe, and went down to the kitchen. I did something I had been meaning to do for months and kept avoiding. I opened the deep drawer in Raymond's old desk in the sewing room, the one where he kept his surveying field books and the fat manila folder marked, in his blocky capitals, Lake Cutler. I made a cup of tea in the chipped blue mug, and I read. The deed was there, the original, folded in thirds and soft along the creases. I put my glasses on and read the names on it. Raymond A., Bishop, and Eleanor M., Bishop, husband and wife. And then, clipped behind it, a second document I had signed, and half forgotten in the fog of the year he died. Raymond had put the lake house into a trust, a living trust, in both our names, with me as the surviving trustee. Full control while I lived, nothing owed on it. No second mortgage, no co-owner but me. There was a smaller note too, in Raymond's handwriting, paper-clipped to the front of the folder. Not a letter, just a line, the kind he scribbled to himself. Talk to Gregory about updating the trust. Ellie should decide who, not David alone. R. Gregory Lane had been Raymond's estate attorney for 20 years. I had not spoken to him since the month after the funeral. I sat there in the dark, with the deed in my lap and the tea going cold, and I felt the strangest thing. Not anger, exactly. Clarity. The house on that lake, the one Vanessa had already spent in her head, the one David had already renamed, it had never been theirs. Not 1 inch. My name was on the paper. Raymond had made sure of it, and then he had left me a note, reminding me that the deciding was mine. They thought I was old and tired and easy to bill. They had forgotten I was still on the record. The next morning I called Gregory Lane's office. His secretary said he could see me Thursday. I said Thursday was perfect. I did not tell David a thing. But finding the deed was only half of what waited for me. Because when I got to Gregory's office, he asked me a question that turned my stomach cold. Eleanor, he said, before we start, did you ever give David power of attorney? Gregory Lane's office is on the 2nd floor, above the old pharmacy on Main Street, up a staircase that creaks in the same 3 places it has creaked for 30 years. He is a careful man, silver-haired now, with reading glasses on a chain, and a way of laying documents flat on the desk and smoothing them with his palm before he speaks. I told him about the hotel bill first, because it was pressing on me, and then about the lake house, and the word hour, and the charge at Dahlgren Lumber I still could not explain. He listened without interrupting. Then he asked me about the power of attorney. Years ago, I said slowly, after Raymond's stroke scare in 2016, Raymond and I both signed papers naming David in case something happened to us. I'd forgotten all about it. Gregory nodded and opened a file he had already pulled. He's still listed, he said gently, on a durable power of attorney you signed in 2016. As written, David could act on your financial affairs if you were ever declared incapacitated. He could sign in your place. On the trust as it stands, He's also named as your successor trustee, the person who'd take control of the lake house and your accounts the moment you couldn't. I looked at the paper. He turned toward me. My own signature, younger and rounder than it is now, sat at the bottom of it. I remembered signing. I did not remember what I had signed away. Raymond worried about this, Gregory said. He tapped the note I had brought, the one in Raymond's hand. He came to see me about 18 months before he passed. He never said a word against David that wasn't his way. He just kept coming back to the same thing. He said he'd watched you hand people the benefit of the doubt until there was almost nothing left over for yourself. He wanted to make sure that if the day ever came, the decisions stayed with you. Not with him, not with me, with you. He never told you what he thought would happen, I said. No, Gregory said. He didn't know, he only worried. He asked me to make sure you had options and knew you had them. Then he ran out of time. A wish you do not record is just a wish, but a worry, written down and left with the right man, becomes an option. I sat up straighter in the chair. All right, I said. Tell me my options. All of them. I want to read every page myself. We started with the power of attorney. Gregory drafted a revocation while I watched a plain document that said, in effect, that I was of sound mind and revoked all prior authority I had granted to David Bishop. He explained that once it was signed, notarized, and delivered in writing, David could no longer act for me in any financial matter. I read it line by line. Then I signed it in my own hand, and Gregory's notary, a soft-spoken young woman named Denise, pressed her seal into the paper. That authority is gone, Gregory said. He'll receive written notice. Good, I said. He likes bills. He can have a letter instead. Next was the trust. Gregory explained I could name a new successor trustee, someone neutral, someone who would not treat the lake house like a lottery ticket. I chose the trust company Gregory's firm worked with, a name with no dinner table stake in my death. There was one more thing Gregory wanted to check before we moved on, and I am glad he did. While we're being thorough, he said, let's look at your bank. When David held your power of attorney, was he ever added to any of your accounts directly? A signature card? Online access? I did not know. That was the honest, uncomfortable answer. I had let David set up the online banking after Raymond died, because the website confused me, and he was patient about it, and I had never once looked to see what that meant. Gregory picked up the phone and called my bank while I sat there, and put it on speaker so I could hear every word. A manager named Paula pulled up my accounts. David was not a co-owner, thank the Lord, but he was listed as an authorized user with online access to my checking. Added the same week he set up the banking for me. He could see every balance, every charge. He could see, I realized, exactly how much a woman had in the bank before he decided what her weekend was worth. Then Paula read me the last few transactions to confirm the account, and I heard it out loud in a stranger's voice. Dahlgren Lumber, $241. I closed my eyes. The charge I had blamed on my own memory. The one I had told myself was a mistake, that I was getting old, that I had probably ordered something and forgot. I had not ordered anything. He had used the access I handed him to buy boards for a dock at a house he had already renamed, and charged it to the account of the mother he thought would never check. It was not the money. $241 is nothing. It was the assumption underneath it that my statement was his to spend from, and my confusion his to count on. There's a charge on there I didn't make, I said, steady. I'd like to note that, and then I'd like all of this closed off from him, today. I'd like that removed, I said, today, please. And a new signature card with only my name on it, and fresh login details that I set up myself, in the branch, with someone helping me who isn't my son. I went in that afternoon. I sat at Paula's desk with a paper cup of terrible bank coffee, going cold at my elbow, and I read every line of the new signature card before I signed it. When she asked if I wanted to keep the old security questions, I said no, new ones, and I chose the answers myself and did not tell a living soul. There, Paula said, sliding the card into a folder. You're the only name on this now. I always was, I said. I'd just been handing out the keys. Then came the part that mattered most to me. The lake house, I said. And whatever's left when I'm gone, I don't want it going to David to divide. I've seen how he divides. I want it held for the grandchildren, Sam and Ella, equally. Not $1 more for one than the other. Gregory wrote as I talked. We built it so the trust held everything for Sam and Ella in equal shares, with each share kept until they turned 25, old enough to know the difference between a gift and a windfall. I kept full control of it all, while I lived. The lake house stayed mine to use, to visit, to sleep in, for as long as I drew breath. Nothing about protecting the future required me to disappear from my own present. One more thing, Gregory said. The deed itself is clean. You're the sole trustee, the trust is the owner, and there is no co-owner, no lien, no recorded claim by anyone else. If David has told anyone that property is his, or that it's coming to him legally, that has never been true. No one can sell what they don't own. I thought about our lake place and the dock boards and $241 I had almost let go. Write that down somewhere too, I said, where it can't be interrupted. It already is, Gregory said. It's on file at the county. It's been there since 1998. I read the whole trust restatement twice, the way Raymond read a survey before he trusted it. Then I signed. Denise stamped each page. When the last seal went down, I put my hand flat on the stack the way Gregory did, and I understood something. The paper did not make me strong. It reminded me I had been strong the entire time and had simply been too polite to say so. There was an envelope Gregory saved for last. Raymond left this with the file, he said. He asked me to give it to you only if you ever came in on your own, deciding something like this. He was very specific. Only if you came on your own. It was a plain white envelope, and on the front, in his blocky capitals, it said, Ellie. I did not open it there. I drove home first, and I sat at the wooden kitchen table where we had eaten 40 years of ordinary suppers, and I put on his reading glasses, and I opened it with the little brass letter knife he kept in the drawer. His handwriting was worse than usual. He had written it in a hurry, or in pain, near the end. Ellie, if Gregory gave you this, it means you walked in there and made a decision by yourself, and that's the only reason I let him hold on to it. I couldn't have handed it to you. You'd have argued with me, and told me I was worrying over nothing, and made me a cup of tea to change the subject. You're doing it in your head right now. Stop it and read. I don't know what happened. I'm writing this without knowing, so I'm not going to pretend I do. Maybe nothing ever went wrong and you're reading this at 90 and laughing at me. I hope so. But I've watched something for a long time and it worries me. You make room. It's the best thing about you, and it's the thing that scares me. You made room for my mother when she was impossible. You made room for David when he was a hard young man. You keep taking your own chair out of the room, so everybody else can sit down. One day, somebody may look at all that room you've made and decide it means there's nothing there, that the space is theirs. If that day comes, I need you to hear me from wherever I am. Do not confuse peace with surrender. They are not the same thing. Peace is a choice you make with your feet on the floor. Surrender is what happens when you let somebody move the floor out from under you and thank them for it. Ask every question, read every page, sign only what gives you rest. And Ellie the lake was never a gift I was giving them through you. It was a place I bought so you'd always have somewhere to sit that was only yours. Sit there. A line you don't record is just a wish. I recorded ours a long time ago. It's still there. So are you. Raymond. I did cry then. I will not pretend I didn't. But I want to be clear about the kind of crying it was. It was not the crying of a woman who has been rescued, because he had not rescued me. He had not left a trap, or a prophecy, or a magic key. He had left a worry, and a note, and a man named Gregory on Main Street. The walking through the door, the reading, the signing that had all been mine. I sat with the letter for a long time, until the light in the kitchen went gold, and then grey. Then I folded it carefully, put it back in the envelope, and set it in the drawer beside the brass knife. I was not angry anymore. Anger still hopes to be understood. I was clear. I had one more thing to decide, and I already knew what it was. David called that Friday evening. I knew from his voice, before he said 3 words, that Gregory's notice had reached him. "Mom, what is this? A revocation of power of attorney?" Vanessa opened the mail and, "Mom, what is going on? Did somebody get to you? Are you all right? Did somebody get to you?" As if the only way I could make a decision was if I had been captured. "I'm fine, David," I said. I was sitting in Raymond's chair by the window, the good one with the worn arms. I had a cup of tea, and I was not shaking. "I'm better than I've been in a while." "You can't just, that's a legal thing. That's serious. Vanessa's really upset. She thinks somebody's taking advantage of you." There it was. First Vanessa, through him. Vanessa is upset that I changed a legal document she never should have known the details of. I said, "That's not the same as somebody taking advantage of me, David. I know the difference. I've had 4 years to learn it." I heard her voice in the background then, sharp, and then closer, because he had put me on speaker. "Eleanor," Vanessa said, using my name the way you'd set down something too hot. "We are just trying to look out for you. That's all any of this has ever been. You're all alone in that house, you're not young, and somebody has to think about the future. We're the ones who'll have to handle everything eventually. We should be part of these decisions. That's what families do." "That's what families do," I repeated gently. "Vanessa, 3 days ago your husband sent me a bill for a hotel room you booked so your sister could have the guest bed at my grandson's graduation. $486, itemized, circled in red. Is that also what families do?" Silence. Then David, quieter, embarrassed. "That was Mom. Everybody chips in. It's just how we split things now. It wasn't personal." "I know it wasn't personal," I said. That's the part that told me the most. I heard Ella in the background asking a question, and Vanessa shushing her. And then a third voice, Sam, my grandson, low and even, saying something I couldn't make out. Vanessa came back harder. "You know what, Eleanor? After everything we've done, the summers, keeping an eye on that lake place for you, all the driving you're going to punish us over a hotel bill? That house is basically ours. We've put our whole lives into it." And there it was, out loud at last. The thing she had only ever said, with the window closed. I set my tea down on the sill. "That house has my name on the deed, Vanessa," I said. "Only mine. It has since before Sam was born. You've spent 3 summers there because I invited you, the same way David invited me to that graduation. But nobody sent you a bill. Nobody ever will. And no one can sell what they don't own." "David," Vanessa snapped, "say something." David did not defend her. But he did not correct her either. He said, weakly, "Mom, can we please just talk about this in person? This is getting out of hand." I let a moment pass. "She said it. David," I said. "But you sat beside her while she did, for 3 summers. Every time she called that lake house yours, you were sitting right there, and you let her, because it was easier than telling your wife the truth about your father's work. You billed me for a hotel because it was easier than seating your mother in the front row. I understand easier. I've made a lot of things easier for you your whole life. I'm done doing it at my own expense." "So that's it? You're just cutting us off?" "No," I said. "You're still in my heart, David. You're just not on my records anymore. Your father spent 46 years teaching me. Those are 2 different maps. and a person can be all over one and not appear on the other. I get to decide which is which now. I know that's new for both of us. He started to apologize then, fast and thin. The way you apologize to end a phone call rather than to mean it. An apology this new has to be set down and carried a while before anyone can answer it, I said. I'm going to carry this one for a bit. Good night, David. And I hung up. I did not slam anything. I set the phone down softly on the windowsill next to the cold tea, and outside the porch light came on the way it does, at dusk, all on its own, without asking anyone's permission. Sam came to see me 2 weeks later, by himself. He drove the 90 minutes in the used Corolla they'd bought him for graduation, and he showed up on a Saturday morning with a bag of groceries. I had not asked for coffee. Real cream, the cinnamon bread I like from the bakery near his house. I didn't know if you had food, he said, standing on the porch, 17 and too tall and not sure what to do with his hands. That sounds dumb. I just wanted to bring something. I made him a grilled cheese at the kitchen table, the way I used to when he was small, cut on the diagonal. He ate it in about 4 bites, and then sat there turning his glass of milk in a circle. Grandma, he finally said, not looking up, I heard what Mum said, on the phone, about the lake house. And I heard some of what she said before, all summer. I didn't know how to stop it. I'm 17, but I knew it was wrong. I should have said something to you a long time ago, and I didn't, and I'm sorry. I reached over and put my hand on his. You were a boy, in a house where the grown-ups were doing the wrong thing, I said. That's not yours to carry, Sam. You carried it anyway all this time, and that tells me exactly who you are. He nodded, and his eyes went wet, and he wiped them with the back of his hand, the way boys do. Can I ask you something? He said. Grandpa, did he really survey the whole lake lot himself? Dad used to say that, but I never knew if it was true. Every corner, I said. He wouldn't let anybody else drive the pins. He said a line you don't record is just a wish. I smiled. He'd have liked knowing you asked. We spent the rest of that morning in the garden. He was clumsy with the trowel and got dirt all down one leg of his jeans and did not care. He asked me about Raymond, real questions, the kind nobody had asked me in 4 years, what his laugh sounded like, whether he was funny, what he'd have thought of Sam going into engineering in the fall. He'd have argued with you about which was harder, surveying or engineering, I said. And he'd have lost, and he'd have loved losing. Before Sam left, he stood by his little car and said, I don't want anything, Grandma. I want you to know that. I didn't come for anything. I know, I said. That's exactly why you'll be all right. I did not tell him about the trust that afternoon. There is a difference between a boy who visits because he loves you and a boy who visits because he's owed. I already knew which one Sam was. But some things a grandmother keeps to herself for a while, the way Raymond kept his worry until the right day. By August, a few things had settled into place. The revocation stood. David did not fight it, because there was nothing to fight. The paper was plain, and it was signed in my own hand. He and Vanessa stopped going to the lake, because I had, quietly, stopped inviting them. And there is no polite way to invite yourself onto a deed that isn't yours. Vanessa's grand plan for the dock never happened, because it was never her dock to redo. David started calling on Sundays. Short calls at first, careful ones. The kind where a man is learning a new language and getting most of the words wrong, but showing up to the lesson anyway. Once, near the end of August, he said, your lake house, instead of the lake place. And then he paused, like he'd surprised himself. And I let it sit there and did not make it a big thing. Small words move in the right direction slowly. Sam visits about every other weekend. Ella came once with him, shy at first, 12 years old and quiet in the way children get when they've been listening to grown-ups more than anyone realized. She helped me pour the strawberry jam into jars, and while the pot cooled, she said, without looking up, Grandma, at the graduation, Why didn't you sit with us? There was room. I told her the grown-ups had worked it out a certain way. She thought about that, screwing a lid down tight, and said, "That wasn't fair. You should have been in the front." Then, quieter, I told Mom I saved you a seat. She said not to make a thing of it. She left that afternoon with 2 jars of jam and a promise to come back, and I understood that both of my grandchildren had seen exactly what happened. They had just been too young to have a vote. That is precisely why the trust holds their shares equally, and holds them until they are old enough that no one can spend their inheritance for them, the way things had almost been spent for me. And I made a decision that surprised even me. I decided to move. Not far. Not into a home, the way Vanessa liked to imply I one day would. I decided to make the lake house my home, the little 2-bedroom on Cutler Lake that Raymond bought, so I'd always have somewhere to sit that was only mine. I rented out this house in town to a young teacher, and her husband kept the garden clause in the lease and packed up Raymond's chair and his field books and the chipped blue mug. Then, before I left the old address for the last time, I sat at the wooden kitchen table and filled out a small stack of change of address cards. The pre-printed kind you get at the post office. New home, new chapter. I sent them to the church, the pharmacy, my sister in Ohio, and I sent one to David. I did not write anything cruel on it. I did not need to. It was just a plain card, in my own hand. Eleanor Bishop has moved. Please note my new address, 14 Cutler Lake Road. He had sent me a bill for a place. I slept 2 nights to remind me I was a guest. I sent him a card to let him know exactly where I lived. I sit now on the screened porch at the lake, in Raymond's chair, which fits this room better than it ever fit the last one. The dock still needs a board replaced. I'll get to it, or Sam will, next time he's up. The water is going gold the way it does in the last hour before dark, and there is an empty chair beside me, the way there always is. But the porch is not empty, and neither am I. I keep a small notebook now, the way Raymond kept his field books. Tonight I opened it and wrote 1 line, the answer to the whole thing, in my own hand, where no one can interrupt it. Sometimes dignity does not arrive with shouting. A bill tells you what someone thinks you're worth. My new address told them what I know. The porch light came on by itself. The lake went quiet. And I sat, at last, exactly where I meant to sit.